What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and there are some big things brewing in oil markets right now and some very suspicious behavior going on at the government. And it looks like oil prices may be about to pop because of it. Now, I had some trouble with my weekly live stream this morning because I am on vacation right now and unreliable Wi Fi cut off my stream. This oil information is too good to pass up, so I had to follow up with this video. And we're going to shrink my big melon of a head and get into these articles here, folks. Oil extends gains as major producers flag capacity limits. And this is the big one. It's coming down to capacity right now. Oil prices rallied for a third day on Tuesday as major producers Saudi Arabia and the UAE looked unlikely to be able to boost output significantly, while political unrest in Libya and Ecuador added to those supply concerns. And if you remember, folks, I've been saying for months now that 2022 and 23 will be known for civil and social unrest, if anything. And we're already starting to see that in these all-important oil-producing countries. Now, first, let's zoom in on what they said about Saudi Arabia and the UAE, because check out this video. This is Joe Biden and French President Emanuel Macron is about to come in here and interject. And I have the audio turned down because it's very hard to hear. But this is basically a hot mic incident here where Emanuel Macron tells Joe Biden that, look, I have spoken to the Saudi prince and I've spoken to the UAE, and they cannot increase oil production very much, if at all, over the next 6 months. So right now, a lot of global energy policy is dependent on OPEC increasing production. And according to this hot mic incident, they may not be able to do that. I'll put a link down in the description below if you want to listen to this for yourself. Now, moving on to Libya, this just came out yesterday. Libya says it may suspend oil exports from key terminals. NOC could declare force majeure in 72 hours, and that the OPEC members' output has already slumped amid port closures. Libya's state oil company said it may suspend exports, which contains many of the OPEC members' main ports, in the next 3 days amid a worsening political crisis. The National Oil Corp said it could declare force majeure, a clause in contracts allowing shipments to be halted within 72 hours. Now, Libya's crude production has roughly halved since mid-April to 600,000 barrels per day, according to Bloomberg's estimates. That's just Libya. Moving on, check this out in Ecuador. Ecuador could stop pumping oil within 48 hours due to protests. This is just yesterday. Ecuador could suspend oil production completely within 48 hours over acts of vandalism, taking over wells and closing roads, the energy ministry said on Sunday amid anti-government protests in which at least 6 people have died. The former OPEC country, which was pumping around 520,000 barrels per day before the protests, may halt oil operations as it has not been possible transport the supplies and diesel necessary to maintain operations. So between Ecuador and Libya, we're looking at over 1 million barrels per day have been lost. And 1 million barrels per day, that may sound familiar because that is exactly the amount that we've been releasing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve on a daily basis. And this just came out yesterday. Also, U.S. Emergency Oil Reserve draws by 6.9 million barrels to the lowest level since 1986. U.S. crude inventory in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve fell by 6.9 billion barrels in the week through June 24th, according to data from the DOE. Stockpiles in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve fell to 497.9 million barrels, lowest level since April of 1986, according to the data. About 1 million barrels of sweet crude and 6 million barrels of sour crude were released into the market. And here is looking at some of the data on the SPR inventories. You can see here month by month what we've been releasing. 5.4 million barrels in January, 9.4 in February, 13.4 in March, 18.4 in April, 24.1 in May, and 25.2 in June. We are increasing our releases from the SPR even as that inventory level gets lower and lower. And we're now down below 500 million barrels. At the current pace, if we no longer increase it, which we've been doing all year, but at the current pace, we will run out of oil in the SPR within 19 months. And oil prices will explode higher long before that ever happens. And even amid all these stories, as Saudi Arabia and the UAE are unable to increase production, Libyan production is falling off a cliff, Ecuador's production could halt entirely, the SPR is being drained at a record pace. Check out this one, and I have to send a shout out to Doomberg on Twitter, who tweeted this out this morning. The U.S. Energy Information Administration is still in the process of system restoration, and as a result, we will not publish new data today, June 27th, 2022. This delay includes the gasoline and diesel fuel update. On Friday, June 17th, we discovered a voltage irregularity which caused hardware failures on 2 of our main processing servers. This issue prevented us from processing and releasing several reports last week, and unfortunately, it continues to affect our ability to release the data this week. Now, I mentioned in my live stream last week that I found this incredibly suspicious that the EIA did not release their data last week due to a system failure. This sounds an awful lot like a Chinese bank making excuses for halting withdrawals. And I mentioned how the timing of this, just before the all-important July 4th weekend, when people hit the road and gather as a family, that this could be incredibly damaging to somebody's poll numbers if gas prices were to suddenly surge higher right before everybody got on the road. And I found it very suspicious that last week they didn't release the data. And now here we are this week, and they're saying it's going to be another week before they release the data, as if to say, we're not going to release any bad news until your family barbecues are over next weekend. Then we'll let gas prices rise. I'm not saying that is exactly what's happening, but this is incredibly suspicious, and the timing of it can't be ignored. And technical difficulties and system upgrades have been excuses in the past for people not wanting to release inconvenient data or as cover for some shady behavior. And again, this has major political implications because the price of gasoline is inversely proportional to Brandon's poll numbers. So long story short, folks, the supply side of the oil equation is looking real messy right now. Even though OPEC is saying they plan to increase production, the two biggest members, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, are unable to increase their production. Even as OPEC member Libya is about to lose its production, and non-OPEC member Ecuador is also about to lose its production, which means global supplies are going to get even tighter, even though all the politicians are walking around saying we're pushing these people to pump more and we're going to increase supplies temporarily. That's not going to happen. Supplies are getting tighter. And the timing of this system hardware failure at the Energy Information Administration cannot be ignored. And it really looks like there are some political shenanigans going on with the data reporting right now. And it all centers around that all-important July 4th holiday. So get ready for a big surprise to the downside when the EIA reports after the July 4th holiday. Look for some serious reductions in diesel and gasoline inventories, causing a panic in prices. So the next couple of weeks, it's going to be real interesting to watch what happens in the energy markets. Till next time, live small and dream big.